Welcome back. You're still watching Power Breakfast on Citizen TV. We want to take a look at the very interesting headlines, and today we have quite a variety. I'm even lost on what to pick, what to leave out. There are quite a number of very interesting headlines, ranging from Kalonzo Musyoka's wars to Murang'a politics in as far as Nairobi is concerned. So many things, and some of the people on my panel today are also making news as well. And I'm talking about Senator Kimani Wamatangi from Kiambu, Senator Boni Halwale from Kakamega, and Karanja Kabage, an aspirant for the Nakuru Senate seat. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Now, the biggest headline on both the Standard and the Daily Nation, of course, has to do with Kalonzo Musyoka and his wars. Of course, the NGO Coordination Board has come out to accuse his, or rather a foundation associated with Bwana Musyoka, that's the Kalonzo Musyoka Foundation, accusing it of money laundering and diverting donor funds. Now, some of these accusations are quite huge, but the big question is, when something like this happens less than 90 days to the election, of course people will see it as a political witch hunt, and that's exactly what Bwana Musyoka said yesterday. And he actually pointed out that it could be Uhuru Kenyatta's number 2 who is to blame. Of course, the deputy president, through his spokesperson Bwana Mugonyi, has come out to deny those claims and accused Musyoka of trying to divert attention. But let's start with you, Senator.
Yes.
Anything happening right now will be seen as political.
Well, largely yes. But I think the best way so that we get the truth out and our people are able to see, Kenyans are able to see what is the truth, is to get into the details of whatever events are coming out. For example, in this Kalonzo issue, ask yourself, what has Jubilee, the president or even the deputy, has got to do with his foundation? Is he saying, I mean, remember, his foundation basically is supposed to be either receiving those donor funds, keeping accounts well audited, reported, and the purpose of that account or foundation is, I believe, carry out social work. I mean, help out in various areas, not political. So when he is questioned about his bookkeeping, and that results in the action that was taken, what does it have to do with his politics? Unless he's telling Kenyans that is where he had kept funds that he intended to be using for campaigns, and now see they have shut down my accounts or my foundation, so I can no longer access my monies to go and campaign. Because you see, it's apparently now becoming fashionable at this time, and that's why I say you're correct. Everything that happens to any politician between now and August must be blamed on somebody and somewhere. And you see, and not only Kalonzo, look at what every politician who has lost in the nominations that were there have done. Everybody has an excuse. I want to blame Wamatangi. Wamatangi came, you even remember, even in my own case, you remember there was, out of 9 contestants whom I beat, one singled himself out, and he's been all over. He came here saying, oh, why was Wamatangi not at the polling station when I was crying? Why wasn't Wamatangi, and the polls were, everything, everything.
Okay.
So
that's a totally different story.
So everyone, everybody who is losing at this time, and this is something really I would want us to discuss in detail.
We will discuss. We will come to the issue of nominations, because it's also one of the biggest stories that we have, and we have one of them who lost out at the party primaries but is going in as an independent, and that's Bwana Karanja Kabage. But before we even get to that, Bwana Kabage, the timing of these accusations against Kalonzo Musyoka definitely will be read as political witch hunt, don't you think?
I think it's a phenomenon that you find across the board. Forget about Kenya. Let's even go to the US election. When Hillary Clinton had a report issued by FBI, she claimed, even as late as yesterday, that she lost because FBI got involved at that late hour. If you look at, any politician will tend to attribute his or her problems to some either imaginary or real political enemies, and that happens. I think one of the cases that I would like to say here with respect to Mr. Kalonzo is that let's assume the Deputy President is behind his woes. Has he published a contrary view to what is being alleged by NGO board? Says, okay, you NGO board, you're saying this is what has happened, that I received 196 million shillings. I also received another 50 million shillings from the Chinese in order to promote primary schools in my area. Now, these are the primary schools that I have done. I'm alleged not to have done. This is how I have spent the money. That is what we should, that should be the debate.
Yes.
It is not to talk about the Deputy President is involved. All I would do is to bring a contrary view.
Yes.
By way of documental evidence and physical evidence. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Because you see, one of the things that we have to understand in this country is this. The moment you assume a political office, first and foremost, your activities, sometimes private and public, they are matters of public. They are not matters of I as an individual. Because you see, even when you raise money in way of foundation, the benefactors of that fund, they are doing that because you have a legitimacy that is conferred to you by the public. That's the first thing. And because that is the case, I think for me, forget about Kalonzo's foundation. What I would say is this: the national NGO, the NGO board, should make it a must that every NGO in this country must publish its balance sheet every year, so that now we can see, is this person saying that this particular foundation has been sold, has been seen to be using monies it has raised illegitimately, or what is the case?
Yes.
For me, that is most important, because you see, the moment an institution is public, first, two things are most important: transparency and accountability. And that there is no way, you don't define transparency and accountability in any other way. It is that it is seen and it is true and it is open to everybody.
Yes.
That for me should be the standard.
That should be the bottom line.
That should be the bottom.
Don't you think, Senator Halwale, that yes, indeed, it is the work of politicians to actually raise integrity issues or integrity questions against their opponents? That, for example, you, when you're running against Governor Oparanya, that yes, you will make it your business to raise integrity questions, or rather, call him out on a few things that you think he did not do right. Yes? Don't you think that by accusing someone of saying that the way Bwana Kalonzo Musyoka is saying that Deputy President is to blame behind my troubles, that surely he should just exactly do what Bwana Kabage is saying, prove them wrong?
I think the fairest thing to say now, since we have, all of us have no idea what transpired, the fairest thing to say now is, one, it's very difficult at this time for somebody not to read an attempt by the government to victimize, to politically persecute, or to do political witch hunt on their opponents who are in NASA. Two, I think Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka on this one has really disappointed me. When it came up, I was expecting that the first response by our good Deputy President in waiting, for the sake of NASA, so that we look different, I was expecting that he would respond by using even the same money in the foundation to put up, publish in all the 3 national newspapers a proper publication of the accounts. This is what I received. This is how I spent it. What you're saying is hogwash. To now come up as a response and tell us that it is the Deputy President, surely I'm unable to see the link.
And now the question
I'm
is,
completely unable to see the link.
Kalonzo Musyoka has always sold himself as a safe pair of hands. What does this do to now the NASA lineup, which I want us to discuss now, because last Thursday, when you were last here, is when we were talking about who will it be, who will it not be. Eventually that afternoon, it became that it's Raila and Kalonzo. But now Kalonzo has been selling himself as a safe pair of hands. Integrity questions have been raised against him. What happens to NASA?
It is not too late. He can still publish them tomorrow. Day after, next week. It's not too late. He can get his things put together properly.
Don't you
but I want to send a message.
NASA should demand that he clears his name when this is in as far as this is concerned.
That conversation might as well have started. So, because of where I sit in the NASA hierarchy, it's good that I don't go that route. But what I want to speak to is a general piece of information for the rest of the country. Yes. The rest of the country, be prepared. Demand that the details of all the transaction in respect of public funds by Deputy President Ruto, Uhuru, Deputy President in waiting Kalonzo, and President in waiting Raila be exposed. We want to know who are these people who will be in charge of a $2.3 trillion budget of our economy. They must tell us. Yes. I mean, for example, I am going, God willing, I'm going to be the governor of Kakamega. I expect that people ask me, where are you coming from? What are you worth? And how is this going to impact on your performance in the office? Or do you just want to go in and advance your private business interests, which is basically what most of our political leaders do. They go to the office to advance the financial interests of their families, of their companies, of their friends, and of themselves. Okay. We want to stop this culture, in my view.
Okay. Yeah. And let's come to the issue of NASA and exactly what this does to that ticket, because integrity issues have been raised. You saw what happened to Hillary Clinton when integrity issues were raised so close to the elections. Do you think it can such an allegation can impact in Kenyan politics? Does it move? Does it have the potential to move the electorate in any way?
You know, in this country we have very fickle memory, and you know, if you go back to the history of Kalonzo, way back, the time he got into parliament, and you need a very good analysis of who Kalonzo is. Kalonzo is not what he pretends to be. Not at all. He's not. You should think, look at his record when he was Kanu's organizing secretary. And if you do all that analysis, and then you look at this so-called Kalonzo, a clean so-called Kalonzo, let me tell you, there is nothing like that. And I think in this country, what I would like to say is this, and I want to support my brother here, that issues of transparency, issues of integrity, they have nothing to do with the political affiliation. The public in this country must demand, Karanja Kabalge, you want to run to be a senator, we want to see your balance sheet. And every year you must publish that balance sheet. And for me, if Kenyans want to talk about leadership, that is the beginning of it. That everybody must be told, account for yourself. Don't tell us the stories about this foundation, that sort of thing. Because until the day we actually reach a point whereby you want to run for a public office, you better have your history correct. Now, if we did that, let me tell you, these shenanigans you are hearing of Kalonzo blaming the deputy president, or you will not even hear it. Yes. Because in the first place, how many people know about this foundation? How is it? Not only Kalonzo's, everybody's foundation. Kidero, we had the issue about Kidero having a commingling of funds between his own personal foundation, and also being alleged that there is some involvement as far as the Nairobi County government, Nairobi City County government funds. Now, and Kenyans keep quiet, because that's what I'm talking about, fickleness.
So you think even these allegations will head nowhere, that Kenyans may not necessarily be moved by
after some time, they are going to say, oh, Kalonzo is very clean, this and that. First of all, one thing I'd like to tell Kenyans, Don't you ever listen to the story of somebody saying, me, I'm born again. I am, what you call the...
But those are matters of religion.
No,
Someone could be born again.
No, forget about being born again. When it comes to question, listen, I don't care. When it comes to a question of public office, leave your God to yourself. We want to know you for who you are. But don't give us this nonsense about I am clean because I have said I am
because of my religion.
But out of all fairness, out of all fairness, you have given my brother Kabake a lot of airtime, and he spent it saying that Kalonzo, the Kalonzo we know, is not the real one. Why can't you use this time and speak to specific areas where Kalonzo has stolen public funds?
No.
You cannot.
There was no allegation of stealing.
I talk about stealing funds
or mismanaged. You cannot just say that the Kalonzo you know of clean hands is not the one, and not tell us the real one. What is he? What has he done?
I think that topic will just drag on. And for the sake of this news review, let us not go there. Let's get some Senator over time.
No. Well, I think by and large, as you've correctly said, this will go nowhere. After tomorrow, the day after, it will be washed away. I mean, nobody will follow it up. And I can assure you, Kalonzo will continue to be the running mate to Raila. The considerations that will be there at the time of voting. And remember one thing. Uniquely this time we went to nominations, I would say, too early before the general election. There's a whole 3 months, 90 days. Almost all these things you see happening here, by the time we go to the election, will be forgotten. Nobody will be remembering that there's this issue. What I said about Kalonzo is really, if then he had been intending to divert those funds that were donated to his foundation for purposes of community work to either his campaigns or other areas, if he indeed had done that, the best way is to own up, clean up, and take the honorable way out by either bowing out and saying I'm guilty of this one, because I don't see really what we must require to stop, not only of Kalonzo but of all politicians now. Stop blaming your woes and your losses to other people.
Yes.
I mean, take responsibility for your losses.
That seems to be the most obvious response.
Yeah, I mean,
that when we say Senator Matangi has done this or the other, you come out and say,
then I go and say it is the work of the deputy president. This is the work of the president. I mean, I'm getting amazed at this, especially during these elections and nominations, as I've told you. Everybody's, once somebody loses, oh, there was a phone call that was made from State House for me to lose. Oh, there's a phone call that came from the deputy president. It's nonsense. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, now that you brought that issue about nominations and how people lost or won.
Yes.
What we are seeing now is that a huge number of these people are going in as independent candidates, and that's the biggest thing now. One of them is Kabage. We just want to understand, is it that you really feel that the party failed in conducting the nominations, especially in Nakuru? Because what we've had so far, and many people have been applauding Jubilee as a party in terms of how it has conducted its party primaries. Why didn't you feel like that the internal party mechanisms could help resolve that issue?
This is a big elephant in the room, and let's just be very candid. First, no party today has the financial wherewithal, the technical wherewithal, the operational wherewithal, and the management wherewithal to run party primaries countrywide. None. And that's why you see what is going on at this particular moment. So, given those 5 imponderables and difficulties, I can tell you the following. We had elections which aborted on the 21st of April. They failed miserably in our county. Then they were repeated on the 26th. All right? And they failed miserably. And I'll tell you why. First of all, we had 3 modes of election. First, they said you use the IBC, registered list to have people vote. Sometimes later they used no, because some people complain that yes, I registered, but I'm not in the what. Then they said, okay, use ID and your IBC card, your voter's card. After some times, about 4 o'clock, they changed. Now use ID. You get what I mean? These were 3 very distinct modes of election. How are you gonna vote? You know what happened? In that process, ID now, from 4 o'clock or thereabout, became the way of determining who is going to vote. So people are voting in several places. There are some people who have voted 10 times. And I'm not making allegations. I'm a lawyer. I know what I'm talking about. Do you get what I mean? So now, for you to tell me that this election was legitimate, either you are full of deceit or deception. Two words. I said either you are a person of deceit or deception. That's a plain fact. I don't know about Wamatangi's Kiambu election, but I'm talking about Nakuru. You get what I mean? Now, for you to claim that these people legitimately lost or legitimately won, you are out of your depth.
But what difference do you expect to happen? What's the main difference you hope, the distinction between the elections come August and now?
Good. There's a very big distinction. The IBC will conduct elections. First of all, they have all the capabilities of doing whatever it is they're going to do. Secondly, they are going to use voters' cards, and everybody has a voter's card. Right? That's the mode of election. Unlike the one I'm talking about where 3 modes were used, they are going to use only one. So you can't go and vote twice. You get what I mean? Now, that makes a lot of difference, because either you lose or you win. But you cannot have one person voting 10 times and then you say those are elections. There's no such a thing. The other thing is this, and I'll tell you what's also even more interesting. The timing. The voting started in some places at about 8. There is no voting that started at 6. I can assure you that. I have record of it. For about 8, some of them 10, and some of them 11 o'clock. Now, in some places, I'll give you Naivasha, for example. Naivasha, the voting, when it started around 10, 11, by 5:30 to 6, they closed the voting. And people are dispersed. Do you know in Nakuru town, voting was going on as late as 11 a.m.? Do you know in Kurosoi North, voting was going on as late as 2 a.m.? Yet
Bwana Kabage, what happened in Nakuru happened in quite a number of counties across the country. And Jubilee now has a lot of candidates. Are you saying that most of these candidates are not legitimately
I'm not talking about any other place. I'm talking about Nakuru. I'm being very specific. You get what I mean? I don't know, that's what I say. I cannot talk about Kiambu. I'm talking about where I was a candidate and where I observed, and we have documental evidence.
Because the problems you're talking about are the same problems that have been raised by quite a number of different candidates all over the country.
Maybe a coincidence. Me, I'm talking about Nakuru, where I was a what? A candidate. You get what I mean? And I'm talking about things that are incontrovertible evidence. Because I will never come here to the television and make a statement that doesn't have grounds. I will never do that myself. I can tell you that. So, I am looking forward to either winning or losing legitimately. And I also want to say this, and maybe you can take issue with my good friend Senator Mwatangi. Elections, they have 2 components. Component number 1, they must be legal. Component number 2, they must be legitimate. In other words, you draw power from the sovereign authority of the people you are going to rule, or you're going to make decisions on their behalf. If you lack legitimacy, let me tell you, you may be a senator because legally you are a senator. But the moment it passes a point whereby you don't have that legitimacy, you know what it means? Even your conduct as an elected senator, or a president for that matter, is such that people don't matter.
Yes.
And that is we are subverting the constitution of the Republic of Kenya, which under Chapter 1, it talks about two things: the sovereignty of the people and the supremacy of the constitution.
Okay. Senator Matangi, of course, you face a similar problem in Kiambu, that the person who came second to you has raised similar issues like Bwana Kabage has raised, that, and said you lack legitimacy because the process was flawed. So whatever Bwana Kabage is saying, that it could just as well be said for Kiambu. Do you agree with what Bwana Kabage says, that the party in some areas or in some cases failed in how it carried out the process?
Well, let me say this, and I'll say this very quickly. One, using my own case as an example, I woke up very early in the morning. I went around the whole of Kiambu. Before even I voted, I drove across so many polling stations just to find out what's happening. And I found in most of the polling stations, people turned up very early. And we had already, Jubilee had already made an announcement before that voting was started at 7 a.m. So I went around. In most of the places, voting was starting at about 7:30, 8, some at 7 a.m. They did manage to start. And after doing a tour, I went to my own polling station to vote. When I went, I gave out my passport, which I was using that time to vote. It's the document I used to register. And the person who was processing produced the register, looked for my name, used a red pen and a ruler to cross my name across the register that I voted. I went and I voted for everybody, marked my finger with indelible ink, and I said thank you, and I left, and I continued to tour now the entire county. After that, by around 6 p.m. it was determined this is time to close the polling stations. And so what the determination we made was close every entrance to the polling station, but the person who is already inside the polling station will be allowed to vote. So once the places were sealed, and I must commend, let me take this opportunity to also commend the party, because one thing that was extraordinarily present was enough security. There were no incidents, however you find there was violence. And after that happened, the people who were outside were closed out. Actually, like in Kiambu, in places like Githurai, in Kahawa Sukari, people were protesting. They were saying, we went to work, we have come after 6, but we want to vote. But I told we could not, you cannot vote. Now, after the entire of that process, this is my take. This is my take. That comparatively, for party nominations, there is no any other one time in our history when we have been able to conduct party nominations with the kind of peace, with the kind of security, with the kind of fairness that was seen this time. Because let me finish. I've participated in many nominations. This is probably my third one, and I have seen the others how they look like. Now, lastly, what you said about legitimacy. See, I believe verily in the right of any person, including Karanja Kabage or any other person who vied during the party nominations and lost. I believe that they have a right to go and take another chance as independent candidates. It's their constitutional right during the general elections. Now, what I find unacceptable as a person, and I said I'll talk for Kiambu, what I find unacceptable is that most of the candidates who lost during this exercise want first to use another stepping stone to land at their constitutional right of being independent, to go first by either wanting to blame, as you have heard so many stories. I'm blaming State House. They said I should lose. I'm blaming the Deputy President. I'm blaming my opponent. They said I should lose. All those stories that you hear. The best way I would advise anyone who wants to vie as an independent is it is your right. Simply say, I am not happy with the decision, I'm not satisfied, I want to take a second chance. The Constitution allows you that chance. Go there cleanly, but don't lie about it. And you know, and that's my issue. Because you see, like in my case, as you said, let me touch on it, please. Briefly. No, because you see, like in my case, you see, I suffered a lot of not only humiliation, but bad mouthing. You know, I played by the rule, and I said I'm going to honor the people of my county, allowing them to express themselves, and I wait. But my waiting was was overturned by my opponents. I remember I said I had 9. Only 1 came out saying, oh, the senator was not here. He was out there. What was he doing? Well, you know, so many things. Until eventually, and I'm sure I remember he even came here, even claiming that even Senator Kalonzo had called him to offer him a bribe, that he should step down and wait for nomination. You know that kind of lying. You know, that is color.
You are lucky enough not to go through this muddy nominations process. Now, from, let's say, a perspective of an outsider, quite a number of people, over 2,000 aspirants, are seeking, more than 2,000 aspirants are seeking to vie as independent candidates. There are so many that it's actually a problem even for the registrar of political parties because they flout her office. Do you think all these people are not in denial that they probably just lost by the, because no one, as it is said jokingly, that no one lost at the party primaries. Everyone was wigged out.
I want to agree with my brother Kabage 100%. When we congratulated Jubilee Party for the primaries, it was not because their process was free, fair and credible. We were only saying that the process was peaceful. That's all. Not Jubilee, not ODM, not Fort Kenya that I represent, not Wiper. No party has got the capacity to conduct free, fair and credible nominations. I am a party leader and I know the headache I have had to go through over the last 5 days. We don't sleep. People are coming and complaining, and when they bring evidence, the evidence is credible. I hope nobody in this country this morning has believed what my brother Wamatangi has said. Wamatangi is lying on television. That Jubilee was so nice, they started at 7:30 a.m. and finished at 6 p.m. by closing the polling station and allowing the ones in the polling station to vote. He is lying because he's forgetting that the 7:30 a.m. he's saying he was at his polling station. I was with him that morning on NTV Live, and we went on NTV Live up to 8:45 when he begged that, please release me. So even if you must pay the Jubilee to look nice, Kenyans are watching. You have had your time. You'll respond. So what Wamatangi is doing, he's just gloating in the so-called success. You should wait for the real meeting. You have a rendezvous with destiny on 8th of August. It cannot be that in the same Kiambu, where elections are said to be perfect in your view, Kabogo on the other side is saying, I'm walking out of this thing is not credible. To answer you directly, what do we learn from here? When ODM knew that there is a battle in Kakamega for the position of governor, they never subjected their candidate to nominations. They said our candidate is Oparanya. Fort Kenya wants that position. It says our candidate is Khalwal. Finished. The same thing in Mombasa. Raila said my candidate will be Joe. And Kalonzo said my candidate will be Omar Hassan. In Nairobi, Raila said my candidate will be Kidero. That is the way political parties are supposed to make decisions. They decide who they want to field.
So the nominations are totally unnecessary according to Senator Halwale.
Yes, and the ones who are not available, instead of wasting their resources the way Kabake did, they can go and stand on another party. This happens in the UK.
We need to take a break.
Let me answer.
Because of time and we have a commercial break, we need to take a break now. When we come back, you've raised an issue about resources. When we come back, we want to look at how people spend resources, because we do understand Senator Wamatangi spent quite a lot of money in those primaries. That when we return.